Welcome to the 52 Love Podcast, your show for 52 lessons in 52 weeks. Before we dive in, remember you can find the audio version of this episode, along with the rest of the series, on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and Radio Public. And now, here's your host, Ms. Tonya Todd.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the 52 Love Podcast, 52 Love Lessons in 52 Weeks. This year, we are exploring each of those tips with a new guest each week. This week's tip is to enjoy a sunset with your partner, and here to talk about it is my guest, Tony. This is a very special episode that we are going to dedicate to Mike and Rhea. Tony, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do, and then you can explain why this episode goes out to them.
Sure. So I'm Tony Farina. I'm an online writing instructor. My official title is Associate Professor of Humanities at Siena Heights University.
Very fancy.
Very fancy. Yeah. I have other things that go on to that too. So that's my day job. But I've been writing pretty much my whole life. So I write reviews, I write fiction, I write journalism here and there, whatever I can do. I'm working on some novels right now. And I'm also a podcaster, and I'm on the Comics in Motion Network. And we've spun off doing some Pop Gorillas stuff on their own feed that's also part of Comics in Motion. And so we're dedicating this to Mike and Rhea because, well, here's what happened. So Mike Burton, who's also on the Comics in Motion Network, has a different show called Genuine Chit Chat. And I heard you on his show, and I'm a big fan of Mike. And, I was thinking, it's like I've got this act, how he does his promo the day before,
Yes.
the week before. He's like, I've got an actor, writer, everything else, Tonya Todd, she's going to be on. So you think, okay, that's what we're going to talk about. And then all you guys talked about was nerd stuff.
Right.
Like,
It was supposed to be about me, but when you started talking that stuff, it's like, I would much rather talk about this.
Yeah, which was amazing. And so, right, I'm down to listen. I listen every week. I think he says I'm the only person he thinks who's listened to every show. I've listened to every show. And, once I heard him, I went back and started listening from the beginning. And so whatever he puts out, I'm going to listen. So I heard your show. I was thinking it was going to be about writing and acting and the things that you do. And then I heard all this nerd stuff. So I immediately reached out and was like, oh my God, you need to come on my show because I want to nerd out. And so you did. And we talked about Black, which was amazing. And then since then, you've been on my spinoff show with Jack, where we talked about Buffy. You're coming on again next month. And it's all because of Mike. It's all because of Mike.
All because of Mike.
And then Rhea, who then is Jack's sister. Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah. So of course you guys just recorded again.
Yes.
She's starting a show, and you and I are going to be her first two guests. So it's all confluence of events has brought us here together, and I'm very excited.
And I'm guessing you did not listen to I think it's the After Hours episode, or no, it was just it's a Rhea episode that was in two parts. But if you were part of, oh, yeah. You did. So did you hear them talking about how they both have a crush on us?
Yeah, they do. I did. I heard that. Yes. How he said
it's in the name, right?
That was nice.
We're
right.
priceless.
We acknowledge that our names are one letters apart, and
right.
So that's exciting. Yes, I did hear that. And then I was thinking,
and isn't your middle name? Oh no, your middle name is not. It's with an R, right?
An R, Russell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. What's yours?
It's with an N.
Oh, okay.
I'm TNT.
Oh, nice. That's amazing. A little AC/DC action.
Right.
Yeah. So no, I heard that, and that was lovely. That made my heart sing. So I'm sure they'll be excited to hear us talking.
And it's funny, I hadn't heard that part before I was on I did the recording with them. And I'm kind of glad because I would have been all, embarrassed.
Yeah.
But when I heard it gave me a smile, a much needed smile for the situation I was in a few weeks ago. I've lost a few people, and I was really sad, and hearing them talk about us, I don't know, it just brightened my day. So
yeah.
It was very well timed, and I appreciate them both. And I adore Mike. I feel like he's one of those people who was gifted to me by God, as a result. I got to know him. I got to meet Megan. I got to know you. So I'm just very grateful that he is in my life. And he made this nifty logo.
He made that?
Yeah.
Right? Since we're showing off logos, so this is a logo for the fake band that's in my book that I'm trying to clear right now. It's called Tricycle Boombox, and my wife made
very
this
cool.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that name?
Well, so we were on Hilton Head Island and on vacation. It was on a Thanksgiving, so we're coming up on the anniversary of the Tricycle Boombox, and this was years ago. And out on the beach we're staying on the beach, and there's a guy on one of those adult tricycles,
Mm-hmm.
You've seen those. And I'm sure they're big in Vegas, people in
Oh, yeah.
tricycles. Yeah. So, and he had an old school boombox, like in the back basket. That's all he had. So it's like with the dual cassette, like straight out of Say Anything or Do the Right Thing, those
Yeah.
big Mondo ones. So anyway, I was like, so we have this game that we like to play, band, album, or song. And so we'll
Mhm.
see a thing or we'll say a phrase and we'll, like I said, a band, album, or a song. And then we send it around to our kids. My wife and I do it. So anyway, Tricycle Boombox, I was like, that's a band. She's like, that's a band. So that was it.
It
So I
totally is.
so I decided in that moment, though, that Tricycle Boombox would be originally, it was going to be ukulele hip hop band, as you see right there. And so that was the original joke. But then as I created Tricycle Boombox for the book that I wrote, one of the characters in the book is in Tricycle Boombox. So now it officially lives inside that thing. So then it evolved inside the book, and he does more than just ukulele hip hop. He does whatever kind of music. So he'll do heavy metal, but with a ukulele or whatever.
Right.
He does that. And so then I've written some songs as Tricycle Boombox. So it lives, it's multi-layered. There's the name. So that was it. It was just a fun time on Hilton Head Island. And now it has become a
Where
thing. And
inspiration struck.
It
in the
is. And
form
now
of
it's
this
everywhere.
odd man on his tricycle with his
He
boombox.
will never know, unfortunately. I hope one day maybe he'll know. And it's funny, I didn't actually play the ukulele at the time. It's because of all of that. My wife bought me ukulele. And so now I can play.
I've had those moments where it's like, this is not a thing I do, and yet I have it in my book. Let me
Yeah.
try it. Oh,
Yeah.
I actually like this.
Yes.
I mean, in fact, I wasn't even an actor when I first wrote my first novel.
I
was
did
not
know
even
that.
an
I
actor.
assumed it was the other way around. Oh,
No,
no way.
I wrote the book about this woman who became an actress, and people started asking, "Are you writing about yourself?" And no. And eventually it manifested into my own life. And now it's even more challenging to convince people that this is not my story.
I didn't know. I would have. Right. That's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah. So I started writing songs for the book. And so my wife, Lee is her name. So one day there was a box at the house and she's like, open that up. And it was this one, the one on the bottom, handmade in Hawaii. And so the blue one.
That's so cool.
Yeah. The blue one at the top is my practice one. So as I'm writing songs or learning new songs, it's like a janky plastic one. So I play on that. The strings are harder. The action's really bad. And then once I figure it out, when I switch over to the good wooden handcrafted one, it sounds ace.
You have some other interesting things in your background, and one of them is my favorite thing about you. Do you know what I'm referencing?
I believe, let's see if I can nail it right there.
Yeah.
One of my many Jane Austen collections.
Tell us about that.
So these are paperbacks, and they are illustrated paperbacks of the 6 main Jane Austen novels. And they're in alphabetical order because my wife is a librarian. So that's how they that's how they work.
Match made in heaven.
Favorite order. Yes. And so in every room of our house, save the restrooms, there is a full set of Jane Austen books. So in the room across the hall, they're hardcovers. They're the Barnes & Noble editions, and they each have a different introduction from somebody. In the living room on our fake mantle that we have, there's another edition of hardcovers. I don't actually remember where we got those, but those have really amazing covers. We've got the leather bound ones that have the Wordle covers. So like they do a word puzzle of all the words from the book that are on the cover. So we have those in the bedroom. And then throughout the house, then in the other part of the dining room, there's like a collection that has several of them in there. So they're all around. So we are Janeites. And actually it's hard to point in the camera, but right there, which you can't see, is a Jane Austen action figure.
I didn't even know there were action figures.
There's one. That's the one. We have it.
That's the one.
She's just standing and she's like, got a quill. So she's
right.
Boss. So we love Jane. She speaks our language, and she's just the funny, in my opinion, and I know you agree, she's the funniest writer.
And here's the thing.
Hysterical.
I was on Mike Burton's show to talk about my career. We talk about nerd stuff.
Yeah.
You invite me on your show to talk about nerd stuff.
Yeah.
And I see these books. It's like, I have found my people,
Yeah. And I've sent you the private
link. You can love
link.
Jane Austen and comics. Like, it's okay.
And I actually, in the dining room or in the like bar area, like our kitchen's open, there's a bar. And so Lee has like a little table there. And below that, where we've got other books, we actually have 3. Marvel Comics put out 3 of the 6 books as adaptions. They have not made all 6.
Cool.
So we have We have them. We have Emma, Pride and Prejudice, and I believe it is Sense and Sensibility. They haven't done the other three yet. So we have those as well. So whatever we can get our hands on, we'll get it. If there's a new adaptation, if something new is out there, we give it a try. We don't like them all, obviously, but we're willing to try anything. There was a movie we just watched a
You're
couple weeks
open
ago
to
called
it.
Modern Persuasion with Alicia Witt. It wasn't very good. She's always good, but we watched it all the way to the end because that's how it is. Yeah.
So, speaking of giving things a try, we should probably talk about this week's tip.
We absolutely should.
Before we go off the rails, just
Your producers are
chit-chatting.
like, what is this show? What do we
Right.
Sunset.
This week's episode is the Tonya and Tony episode.
What? We're talking
Together
about
we're TNT, right?
what? Yes.
So this week's tip is to enjoy a sunset with your partner. And you are very excited about this one. Why don't you tell me why?
Well, for so many reasons. So I grew up on Lake Michigan, right up, like not on the lake, but like my parents' house was like half a mile walk. And so I could just walk to the lake and Lake Michigan, for those of you who've not been in Michigan, people who like have a lake where you take a weekend boat and you can see across and wave to the people across. That's a pond. A lake you can't see across. It's vast. And so I grew up where the sun would set on the west coast of Michigan, the sun set into the lake. And so that was my life all the time. And then when I eventually met my wife, she was a big sunset fan too. Just on her own. She did not live on the lake, but to her, it's just one of her favorite things is to see sunset. And so she would go to the lake. She loves water. She loves the beach. She loves it being warm. So we would do that. Once we got together, we would take ourselves or the kids or whatever. We would go drive to a coast and we would sit and watch the sunset. And we applaud when the sun sets every night. At the end of the sunset, we applaud every night. And because it is magic and every day it's different. You can watch the same sunset every day in the same place and it's always slightly different. And so we now live in Florida and our house is, and I've sent you a picture about a month ago. We live on a thing called the Peace River and the sun sets. There's a bridge over there. The sun sets over the bridge. So every night in this calendar year of 20, so now we're in October. So my wife has taken a picture of the sunset every day since January 1st. And so at the end of the year, she'll make a movie. So every day.
And I didn't know that. I asked, did you do your assignment? And you're like, what do you think about this?
I'm set. Yeah. So every day we do it. We stop whatever we're doing. At whatever time it is. So, that's in winter, it's obviously much sooner in the day. In the summer, it's much later in the day. But we just stop what we're doing and we go and she takes the picture. I mean, obviously, if it's raining or something, we can't. There's been a few days when one of our children got married and we were up in Michigan that we didn't get to do it. But so of the 365 days when it's all said and done.
I think that may be worth the sacrifice of missing.
It was totally worth the sacrifice. Exactly. We were like, listen, honey, you can't get married this year because we've got this.
Right. We kind of have this project going on.
Yeah. So that's it. So for us, sunsets are those things that we just sit and we're quiet most of the time. It's just one of those things where, and it's always, the thing about a sunset is you wait for it all day, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really realize it until it starts to go. And when it gets closer to the horizon, the speed at which it goes is both, so enjoyable and also so frustrating because you like want it to last because it's so beautiful, but it's also, it's so cool at how fast it goes. You're always amazed every time at how quickly it goes down. So that's part of the applause is now today's picture was different than yesterday's picture. It's like the greatest rerun ever. And it is for us a moment of time. The day is over literally, and we spend it together really, truly in silence, just enjoying it. And for those 5 minutes when it finally goes below the horizon, we're quiet. She's taken a couple pictures this year. Our back porch actually has a swing. So when this year is over, we'll just go back and sit on our little glider swing so we can watch it. Yeah, it's amazing.
It really is. And it feels like for you, it's kind of a metaphor for your relationship. Yeah. Because it's, you're with the same person every day, but it's not the same because it's just a new type of gorgeous. Each day dawns a new beauty. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, for us, we really like each other. We're those people who the pandemic has sucked. Let's not pretend, but we've been okay because we like each other. We don't mind
Right.
being in the house. We're introverts who are cool to be alone on the couch reading books
Yes.
or whatever. So it's for us, that's what every day can be. You get up, you do the work, whatever, you go through your routine, whatever it is you have to do. There's a routine to your day. But the sunset is at a different time every day, and
Hmm.
it's appointment television, as it were, right? Because it's our back window. So we're like going to look out this TV box, and the reason that there's an appointment, and to us, it's important, and that's a thing I think most people don't do. Is like this about as well as anybody. When you get in a relationship, we've been together 16 years now. You get in a relationship with somebody, you start to take the advantage, not advantage of, but you take that person for granted.
Hmm.
Because you're always going to be there. You're always going to, and you don't really take
Right.
those moments to stop. And a sunset, if you sit and watch a sunset with someone, you're making an effort to stop whatever else, what the noise is, pause the game that you're watching, put down the book, stop the show, whatever, and do this thing, even if it's just for 5 minutes. But in those moments, it's that acknowledgement that you, the other person in this moment right here, right now, are important. And so a sunset gives you that, because it's an excuse to cut the bullshit out. Sorry if this is not a swearing show. Sorry. You should have
It's
known before
fine.
you
No
asked.
censorship.
I didn't think to listen back. I'm like, has anybody sworn? I don't remember anybody, but here I just did. Sorry. But so to me, that's the beauty of the sunset is it gives you that moment to just appreciate each other because you are agreeing to do something together.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you.
Sounds like you might be a writer.
It might be, huh? Yeah, I might have written a Jane Austen adaptation too.
Right.
There's no sunsets in that, but now I feel like I should add that in the fourth draft.
In the epilogue, right?
In the epilogue, we'll have a sunset, sure.
Why don't you tell us a bit about your writing journey?
Oh, sure. So like I said, so this is so weird. So I was in 7th grade. I mean, I always had thought of ideas. I liked books and comic books. I could read when I was 3, I started reading on my own. And so when I was in kindergarten, my teachers were like, "We're teaching A, and you're reading chapter books." So they like sent me out. And, so I was always reading ahead. So I read the Chronicles
Right.
of Narnia when I was 5. So books and storytelling have just always been my thing. And I was 12. I was in 7th grade, and we were reading Great Expectations, and I had already read it because, duh, why hadn't you already read this? And everyone else, of course, hates it, is miserable. And
Aw.
so my teacher says to me, "There's no value of you sitting in this room watching
Well,
your
that's great that
classmates."
your teacher recognized
Yeah,
it.
she was like, "Why don't you go do something else Dickens related?" So I was like, "Okay." So what I did was my first
Go start your
adaptation.
Dickensian journey.
Right. So I wrote a play adaptation of Christmas Carol set in modern time, because it was getting around this time of year. So I was thinking about that. So I wrote this like silly kind of like slapsticky modern day take on the Christmas Carol, and she thought it was pretty funny. So she's like, "Okay, well, go get some people and go do it." So I got to go cast it and direct it. And by the time it was all done, this is
Oh, you're a
7th grade,
producer already, huh?
all of a sudden I've made my own. So like we let us perform it, and it was the Christmas play that year. I'm in 7th grade. So that was super cool. And so then the next year I did something else, another play that she had me do. And that one was a little too offensive, she felt, because now I was in 8th grade and a little more edgy, I guess. But she still let
Yeah,
me
that
do it.
8th grade edgy.
Angst. Yeah. So, but anyway, so since then I started writing short stories, and I would journal, and I just have always wanted to write. I've done some journalism. I've done some reviews. Currently I write audiobook reviews for Audiophile magazine, and I do some comic book reviews and stuff. So I'm always writing. I liked short stories. The longer stuff I'd done was always like a bunch of short stories that I could smash together. And then a few years back, I decided I had a master's in education. I could get a PhD, or I could get an MFA. So I got my MFA in creative writing, and I wrote a novel. It was like, because now I had to, right? This is the plan.
Right.
So I finally cracked the code for how to write novels. And then while I'm querying that one, I wrote this other one, a modern day adaptation of Mansfield Park. And now I'm working on the next one while I'm creating. So I've got 2 out while I'm writing a 3rd one. And I've got a few short stories that I'm banging around. So I just kind of love stories, and I like words, as you can tell from hearing you talk. And I just think books matter and stories matter. And I think we learn empathy, and we learn how to love other people from books. Like, I grew up in Southwest Michigan, home of a bunch of, white farm people. And I saw the world through books though. So for me, I could meet a person of a different race or a person from a
Hmm.
different color culture or a person from the, with a different sexual orientation in the pages of my book. So then I love those characters. These are people to me. And so then when I meet the people in real life, I'm like, oh, I already know. Oh, I've already met somebody from Japan because I read
Right.
this book, even though I'm just now meeting someone in real life, so it's kind of one of those things. So since I love stories, I always hope that, as a writer, I'm trying to reach other people and tell stories that will ring true to them and hopefully give them um, some empathy for other people who are not them. So to me, that's just it. It's just now it's just something I do. So I have a routine. I write most every day. Right now I'm in the querying process, and you know what that's like. So you're like
Yes.
hard to work on the next project when you're so. But I've made the decision that next week my term is over for teaching. I'm in a break, so I'm going to start working on the next project.
And it really helps to just, you're querying this, move on to the next thing so that you're not obsessing over it, you know?
That's the word, isn't it? Oh, it
It
is.
is.
Because every day you're like, refresh email, refresh. Is something coming? Is somebody? So, because I have a special email that's just for that, just for querying, So it's like
Yeah.
my professional email. And so it's hard. You're every day, you're like, is something, oh no, oh. And then you get the rejection and you're like, but it's okay. You got to shake it off. It's a weird thing.
My
So
rule
that's,
was when you get a rejection, you have to send out another query. Like it was
oh,
automatic.
nice.
And if you get a rejection on a full request, you send out 2 queries because you need
Nice.
that extra hope out in the world.
You do. You do. Yeah. Getting the full request and then having that come back as a no. That's like
Yeah.
get the full request and it's like buying a lottery ticket, right? Because it's like you buy a lottery. People don't buy lottery tickets because they think they're going to win. They buy lottery tickets because they need hope.
Right.
So you buy a lottery ticket and it's for however long. So if the lottery's on Friday and you buy it on Wednesday, from Wednesday to Friday, you've got bottled hope. It's a winner until it's a loser. So
Right.
when someone requests a full for however long that is, it's a winner until it's a loser. So it gives you such energy. It's bottled promise. And then when it comes out, there's no way to undo that. You can't shut your mind off. If you send the query out and be like, they asked for it, but they're probably going to reject it, then what are you doing? If you think that about your own work, then you should probably stop.
Yeah.
So there's a built-in sense of self-destruction, as you know well, in querying, and you go
Yes.
on auditions. So it's the same thing. You're like, oh, I
Yeah.
made the third callback. Why would they call me back a third time if they're going to give it to? They did give it to her. So you're like, suck. What can you do?
Right. I mean, for a while, I felt like I am just inviting rejection on a daily basis, and I just need to keep going, you know?
Yeah,
But
for sure.
it pays off when you keep going. Like you start building momentum.
Right. Yeah, and that's
And
how it is.
you know why they ask you for a third callback? Because you're not the only person that they're casting. They have to make sure that you are going to work with the other characters that they're casting. So it may not really be about just you. But I've
Right.
had some experience on the casting end too, so I have a little more understanding
Of course.
about. There was this one time where a guy came in and he blew me away. Like he blew the entire room away with his audition. Didn't get a call back because he wasn't right for the part that
You're
was
right.
being cast, but his performance was magnificent. And what he did is he booked that room. In fact, one of the people who was casting with me wrote something just for him.
Nice. Nice, because he was so good.
Right. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what? This isn't the role for him, but I'm going to write one that is because I want to work with
Nice.
him.
Yeah, that's awesome. I get that. That's one of the things I get because the adult book that I'm querying is people are like, this is a hard sell right now. This is a
Mhm.
dysfunctional family who hates each other.
And
Everybody's
people
been
want joy
trapped.
right now.
Right. So I've heard from people saying, I really liked it. I thought that the dialogue was super snappy and blah, blah, blah. I just don't know how I can sell this. I'm like, okay, cool.
And that is another reason to keep going, to write the
Yeah,
next book, because just because it's the first book you wrote doesn't mean it's the first one that will get published.
of course. Yeah, you
It
hear
what
that
I
all the
mean,
time.
I wrote that book years ago, queried and queried and queried. It wasn't that book that landed me my agent. It was 52 Love that
Right.
landed me the agent. And then she happened to take that book too. So if I hadn't continued writing something or putting words out into the world, I might still be waiting, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I know. It is. It's totally, it's not random because, and it's like when you think about the math of it all, there's like,
Mhm.
just in our country, there's 330 million people. Well, there's 3,000 agents. So 1/100% of the people are going to
Yeah.
decide whether your book gets published, and it's hitting the right person at the right time. And you've been there when you're
And
like,
it's so subjective.
it is. You're setting that. You're like, you see, this is the person. This is the person.
Mhm.
She's the one. Oh, she's closed to queries for right now. And so then you have to remind yourself, I got to go back and get her on the day that she reopens, and then you may forget or whatever. And so it's that the person who could be there but is super busy because she's reading 300 queries, so she shut down for
Mhm.
2 months. So it is. It's all about. It's a
Oh, no, I found my
lesson in
perfect agent.
persistence.
I remember finding her. It's like she's the one. She is a Black woman, and she loves Loki, and the main
Were you
male
just looking in the
character in my
mirror?
story is very highly modeled after him, and she rejected it. She rejected it without even requesting the full, but she gave me a very detailed reasons, and I'm still in contact with her. Like I think that she's fantastic, but I just knew she was the one. She was the one, you know?
Yeah.
How could it be that this story about a Black woman with this Loki-like character isn't going to be the one she scoops up? Well, the the female character in that story is really, really depressed at the beginning of the book, and she
Right.
was depressed and didn't need anything else. She wrote that it was breaking her heart to keep reading it, and she didn't want to have to feel like that anymore. You
That's
know, at the
fair.
time,
Yeah.
it was, "I made you feel something, how could you not want it?" But now I understand. She just needed something that was going to be just joyful and uplifting. It wasn't for her at that time, you know?
It is. It's frustrating, but it's also, because in everything else you're in film. So if you and your friends in BZ just, he kickstarts movies. So he's like, I'll make my
Right.
own movie. And that's rewarded. You're like, he's a genius. And he is. Those movies are so fun. But it's like that's okay. And with comic books, you can kickstart a comic book. You can
Mhm.
kickstart an album. You can just record an album and put it on Spotify, and everybody's like, go get her. But with fiction, if you kickstart a book or you just self-publish a book, they're like hack. And it's the
Right,
only
you're not
creative
as
art form.
respected.
Super weird.
And it could be a fantastic book.
But it's just it's the way that it is. That's the last, I think, fiction writing, that's the last real gatekeeper in art.
Mhm.
Everything else like DIY is rewarded. Like some of my favorite musical artists are people that I heard doing it. They put out their own label and were just like, I recorded this in my basement and I saw them open for somebody. I'm like, holy shit, that guy's awesome, or that gal's awesome. I want that music. And they just did it themselves and they're rewarded for that. But not in fiction. If you do it yourself, like if you
I
and
am
I were
starting to
just
see some publishers, start queuing into, "Hey, these are some pretty good authors and they're not represented. Let's go to the author and ask them to write something for our house." I am
that's
seeing some things like that happen.
that's hopeful. That makes me
So
feel good.
it's a shift.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just one of those weird things that, and that's okay. I understand it. You need to have some editorial license, control. You don't
Right.
want the market flooded with jank. But at the same time, it's like, man, I read some really crappy books. I read every day. I read hundreds. I think I'm on like book 230 just in this calendar year.
Mhm.
And some of them are bad. The one I just finished yesterday was really bad. It's like, man, this got published. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. I was reading a lot of really heavy books, like some dark material, and I told you I just lost two people. And it's like
Right?
I need something lighter. I need just something quick and easy and light. And I read this book that I finished a few days ago, and it was just, this is why I read the other stuff, because it was so bad. It's so bad I don't even want to rate it because I feel guilty, because you're still a writer and I don't want to hurt you, but come on, you
Yeah.
know.
I honestly feel like right when I'm doing like a Goodreads review or something, I'm cognizant of that. It's when I know the person is like a well-established writer and I can tell this
Mhm.
is like you're phoning it in. I'm more likely to maybe write a longer, more terse review than if it's like somebody, it's your first book and I didn't like it. I may just give it a 1 and be like, all right, I'm
Mhm.
just done with, I just didn't care for it. Not go, because you're right, you don't want to assassinate anybody's career, but at the same
Right.
time, you're also like, how did this get published? What is this nonsense? Yeah, it's tough. And of course, for every 1 star, I mean, my favorite thing to do is to go and look at whatever your favorite book is. Go to Pride and Prejudice and read the 1 star reviews. That's a delight because you're like,
Yeah.
how do you hate this book? This is a 5 star book. Like The Book Thief, that greatest book written in the last 20 years. I love to go read the 1 star reviews because like, what's happening?
That's a
what
good
did you?
idea. I've never heard of that as a booster, but I think
It
that is
is
a
because it
really good
makes you
idea.
because right, you know how good Pride and Prejudice is. You know how good, like the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest work of American literature, To Kill a Mockingbird. There's 1-star reviews. So just go read it, and people be like, "This book is boring." I'm like, "You didn't read it." So you're like, okay, if somebody can hate To Kill a
You're
Mockingbird,
boring.
right, then you suck. And it's a weird morale booster to see people hate what you know is great. Because then you're like, my stuff is good. I didn't write a 5-star book. So people can hate
See,
Pride
you're
and
one of
Prejudice.
those people where I have this attitude where if you don't like Tony, you're wrong. But it's like that with the books, right? If you don't like Pride and Prejudice, you're wrong.
You're just
You
wrong.
know?
Yeah, you're missing. I don't know what you're missing. I think it's with some books and with some things, with everything. It's like you've got a preconceived notion that this is going to be whatever. I mean, to tie it back to our topic, like you're sitting and you're watching nature happen. Like
Mhm.
sunset happens whether you're looking or not. And so you have to make the choice to pay attention to it every day. And so for some people, they're
And
like, really, you
appreciate it and
stop?
enjoy it.
Right. You stop every day for 10 to 15 to 20 minutes. Sometimes if it's a really clear day and you get the full
Mhm.
set, we'll watch for 20 minutes. And like, that's what you do for 20 minutes. You could be doing something else. You're like, yeah, but this thing that you're wasting 20 minutes on, watching some bad show, I feel like
Mhm.
I'm winning. I'm more
Right.
entertained with that. So I think it's all about, right. If you don't like a sunset, you're wrong. John Green's new book, The Anthropocene Reviewed, he actually reviews a sunset. And it's the first thing in the book he gives 5 stars. All the other
That's
things,
pretty
like
cool.
he reviews lots of things. It's a really fun book. It's a great book. But like, he gives Diet Dr. Pepper 5 stars because that's like his drug of choice is Diet Dr. Pepper. But the first thing in the book he gives 5 stars to is the sunset. And I was like, because he's acknowledging some things are perfect. Some things are.
We are almost out of time and we didn't even
Sorry.
talk about your podcast. Quickly tell us about the podcast and then
Sure.
wrap up by letting everyone know how they can support you and listen to your
Oh,
podcast.
thank you. So yeah, I'm on the Comics in Motion Network. So I've got a couple of different shows on there. So if you just go to Comics in Motion Network, you search us and then your podcast catchers, we're in there. Like Mike's on there with Star Wars comics canon. I do Indie Comic Spotlight. I do the Pop Gorillas. I do Season's Greetings with Jack, which you were on. You'll be on again, coming soon. Angel season 4. We need you for the hard stuff. When we're like, we
Yeah,
don't know
you
how to
hate
do
me.
this. Let's call Tanya. Yeah, we like you. That's why we need you there to help us. So yeah, so just go to Comics in Motion P, or you can go to my website, arfarina.com, and you can get links to everything. Or I'm on Twitter at Tricycle Boombox. And you can find me there and send me a question, whatever. And that's the best way to access everything I'm doing is on there. And if you're interested in a Mansfield Park YA adaptation set in modern day Michigan, I have one.
He's the guy.
I'm the guy.
All right. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you.
me. This was really fun. I feel like we could sit here and talk another half an hour
We could.
or two. you know, I always have to book extra time when I'm talking to you or Mike when I'm on your shows because, like, yeah, we're gonna have to catch up.
We're gonna go over. Yeah, it's all good. It's lovely to see you. Thanks for having me on. I love the show. I love the concept. It's cool that I got to be on the Sunsets. It means a lot. It means the most to me. And I promise you that when the video is done, when Lee finishes the video, we'll send you a link so you can see
Yeah, I
our
definitely
backyard
want that.
sunset for a year. It'll be amazing.
Very cool. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Give Tony some love in the comments. And until next time, remember to treat love as a verb.